Welcome to all the candidates. Round one, our first topic is making Winnipeg the easiest city in Canada to start and grow a business.
Mr. Loney has said he will oppose the extension of Chief Peguis Trail, and he will oppose the widening of Kenaston Boulevard, and thereby thwarting economic development. The question is, Mr. Loney, how can you tell this audience that you will say no to expanding trade routes which will hurt their businesses?
Thank you for the question. First thing I wanted to say is you have the three leading candidates right here. 7.5% residential property tax increase would be the largest residential tax increase in the last 20 years in Winnipeg. 0% property tax increase, according to something he said a couple nights ago, and I'll talk about mine in a minute. But let's be reasonable. Centerport is a fantastic opportunity for Winnipeg. The city's own administration has the project listed very high in its priority list. Chief Peguis Trail Extension is listed as 29th. Through this election, Councillor Gillingham wants to bump that from 29 up to the very highest echelons. He hasn't even done a cost-benefit analysis. He's telling us, after I go to the electorate, then I'm going to do a cost-business analysis. I'm from the business community. I understand that you do the cost-benefit analysis and then you ask permission from the people who are calling the shots whether or not the money flows. That's how it works in my world. And moving a project from 29th up to a very high is just completely irresponsible. Now, let me also say the magnitude of these decisions. Just the Chief Peguis Trail Extension is equivalent to a 7% residential property tax hike that we will pay for 30 years. And Councillor Gillingham, have you told the people who use the Louise Bridge and 24 other projects that you're going to bump down the line for your pet project that they're going to have to wait? Have you talked to the RM of Rosser and talked to the RM of East St. Paul and West St. Paul who are going to financially benefit and ask them for cost sharing?
Scott Gillingham, you now have a minute to respond.
It's time to invest in our economy, and that's what I'm dedicated to do. Mr. Loney wants to stifle our economy. His plans are to, I think it was something about making Kenaston a greenway, and I don't even know, frankly, what that means.
You wouldn't know. Something the Government of Canada would actually fund.
The white button. Round two focuses on financing the new reality. It is well known that Winnipeg, like all Canadian cities, has some financial challenges. Winnipeg is struggling with needed investments and service demands of a modern city, using a revenue model that is as old as the city itself. Winnipeg also levies a business tax, which is a deterrent to business growth and development. It is the only major city in Canada, by the way, to do so. How would you, as mayor, work with your council colleagues and other levels of government to change the tax structure to one that incentivizes economic investment for community growth and well-being? All candidates will answer this question, and we will start with Sean Loney. You have 1 minute to respond.
Thanks, Mayor Lee. On July 25th, I announced a smart tax task force, and it's going to ask the business community to give us advice in a bunch of areas, including how do we eliminate the business tax, rolling it into the commercial property tax. I also have announced a commercial parking fee, 25 cents a day, which would raise about $9 million in revenue. How do we do that? How do we finance things like heat pumps and solar so that businesses can save money in multiple different ways and create jobs for young people? And I was very excited to see that the Premier announced something similar for provincial taxes just on Wednesday. And if I am mayor, I will ask the Premier to work together with us to make sure that we're amalgamated and using taxes as much as possible to leverage our competitive position.
Moving on now to our second candidate exchange. The first question this time will be posed by Sean Loney to Glenn Murray on the topic of financing the new reality. Kevin Klein will provide closing remarks. Sean Loney, You can pose your question.
I note Councillor Gillingham is wanting to eliminate business taxes, but increasing taxes on average Winnipeggers by 7.5%, the highest in 20 years, and I may repeat that one more time before the afternoon is over. But my question for Glenn, when your PST gambit is rejected yet again, will you do what Scott has done and increase the frontage levy? He did it by 16% in 2015. He jacked it up by another 25% in 2016. And now he wants to jack it up by another 28%. It's a very regressive tax. Is that your plan, Glenn? And if the PST falls through, what's your plan B?
Because you may have a better idea than the PST, but I think we've all agreed that that's it. Before I ran for mayor, I talked to 90 people. I went to CEOs, labor leaders, indigenous leaders, women's arts and cultural groups, and I said, I'm not asking for your support today. I want your support on October 27th, because the only way we're going to do this is get down there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sean Looney, you have 1 minute to rebut.
I asked you a very specific question. Are you going to be increasing the frontage levy? It doesn't have the name property tax, but it is a property tax, and just, you might need one of those paddles, but is it a yes or no?
You can respond if you want.
I have laid out in my part 2 of my financial plan, I have laid out a whole series of new revenue.
He's avoiding the
Yes or
question.
no?
I just want to make that,
I
it's a
will
yes
be.
or no.
Just a yes or no, because
I
it
will
is a
not be
rebuttal.
increasing, the plan is not to increase frontage levy, no, but other revenues, yes.
All right,
Thank
you
you.
have
So
25 seconds left,
My
Sean.
property tax commitment is a very reasonable 3.7%. It was not done on the spur of a moment. It is slightly less than the average of the 5 Canadian cities where young people leave Winnipeg and go to. It is also takes into account Winnipeg's ability to pay and Winnipeggers' ability to pay.
Thank you very much. Final response, Sean Looney.
I note Councillor Gillingham wants to have more people downtown, but I'm the only one on the stage here who is in favor of opening up Portage and Main. I think that needs to be stated. There's many things on my platform about how we bring more life to downtown. The one that's got the most attention is my announcement I'm going to appoint a nightlife mayor. And somebody asked me in the media, what happens if the nightlife mayor is more popular than the night mayor? Or the real mayor? And I said, well, we'll fire the nightlife mayor, of course. But really, none of these things are going to stick. There's 8 great suggestions in the playbook, but we have to address homelessness. And I want you to look up and down the stage and ask yourselves, who has the qualifications to address this issue once and for all, and understands that this is not a money issue. This is a systems issue. I announced a brand new idea for Winnipeg, a $100 million community housing land trust. And Councillor Klein and CGOB said, we can't afford a $100 million community housing land trust, but there's no tax dollars involved with it. It's just reimagining investment and inviting foundations and Winnipeggers to move some of our investments into the housing land trust so that it has a soul. And we can feel good about where our money is invested right here at home in Winnipeg. What it does is own the land upon which nonprofits, co-op housing, co-housing can be built. And I think it's using these new types of ideas that we can address some of the housing problems that we have in the city. And like Robert, I'm interested in the rail relocation and would like to see it as Winnipeg's ultimate infill. But my question is for Councillor Klein. I want to talk about crime, and I appreciate this is an important issue for you. The police, we sent them out to public 240,000 times last year. 75% of people, once they're arrested, go into the jail system, and they're back in contact with the justice system within 2 years. Councillor Klein's plan is to continue to arrest the same people over and over and over again. This is a very poor way of addressing crime, and it's also tough on taxpayers. Listen to this number. 9 out of every 10 new positions at the City of Winnipeg in the last 20 years went to emergency services. My question is, why focus on arresting the same people over and over again? And why can't we move the money towards things like social enterprises and supportive housing?
We cannot simply say the success of reducing police calls is having not-for-profit organizations respond. Let's be reasonable. We have 28 police cars that patrol this city. We get 600 calls for service. I don't have to do the math for you. This is not the time to re-arrest our way out, no, but we have to support our police. We have to be realistic. We have an ARC program, it's a pilot project with 1 police officer and 1 social worker. Nobody's talking about putting resources there besides me. I'm not hearing it from anybody else. That's where we fix the problem. You send somebody with the training who can deal with the situation at that time and the social worker. Enough.
Thank you very much. Sean Loney, you now have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
Yeah, I actually don't favor sending social workers out to 911 calls, so I'm not sure where you're getting that from. But I also don't think basketballs are going to fix the problem either. I'm much more of a proponent of a thing called a punch clock. And we had an amazing event, a town hall around public safety at the Norwood Hotel just about a month ago. It was packed. And 2 people spoke in particular. One is a guy named Edward who runs a computer shop on Pembina, has been broken into 3 times recently. And one of my former coworkers from Build stepped up and said, you know, Edward, I was robbing the crap out of this neighborhood. I was paying people to rob in this neighborhood. And you know what stopped me? Was a job. And that's the type of approach we need to take in crime in this city, as opposed to just responding after the fact at huge taxpayer expense. Thanks, Mayor Lee. And I just wanted to acknowledge the other 4 on the stage. I am very privileged to feel to be standing here with you today. You've all made amazing contributions to the city, and I honor you each as individuals. Our job here was to kind of help you guys differentiate ourselves from each other. And I don't know, I kind of think we've done a good job of that. But the way I see it, every problem is actually an opportunity. Our carbon footprint is a fantastic opportunity to create thousands of new green jobs. Our high police budget's an opportunity for new public safety options that actually prevent crime from happening in the first place. An outdated tax system, an opportunity to become more competitive and innovative. And you deserve a city that focuses on solving problems, and that means we have to do things differently. And you deserve a mayor who sees the potential in each one of us, the potential in our city.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our debate. I want to thank all of you for being such attentive listeners. And to all 5 of our candidates today. You didn't give me too hard of a time. Thank you. And thank you for your participation. This really is a valuable asset. Thanks again to the Chamber for putting this on so we can learn a little bit more about the platforms. Thank you all again very much.